Steve Jobs left behind the secret to a strong personal brand. Cracking the code requires 5 things, and this combination will set you up for personal brand success. But first, we need to think different. Steve Jobs was a marketing genius, to which you say,
well, duh.
Duh.
Apple. And yes, of course, Apple, but Steve Jobs teaches us not only to think differently about brand development for corporations, but for ourselves, for our personal brand. You see, Steve Jobs had his own brand that was so distinctive and unforgettable that it allowed him to run one of the most influential companies of our age. But we're not talking about Apple or the brand of Apple, but the brand of Steve Jobs, his personal brand, and how he leveraged it to have influence on this world. He created his personal brand by thinking different. And if you're sitting there thinking, will this work for me? Well, it worked for Steve freaking Jobs, and actually it worked for me. I've employed these same strategies in my career to build my personal brand, and I'm telling you, they work. And yes, you need a personal brand, now more than ever. Don't want to be replaced by AI?
I'm unstoppable!
Personal brand. Need a raise? Personal brand. Want to turn your passion into a business? Personal brand. Want to stand out? Personal brand. Right, Steve?
And we believe that.
So here are 5 Steve Jobs inspired strategies to help you create an unforgettable brand story. Strategy 1, think unique. Steve Jobs was, well, he was odd. He wasn't exactly people's favorite person to work with. He was noted to smell, like that's documented. And he was a bit of a jerk at times. But he leveraged these things to his advantage because he was also an impeccable coder, a visionary, and he understood things to create a fantastic personal brand that brought companies forward. His unique combination of interests and skills and understandings like the use of beauty and technology allowed him to be a unique entity in the marketplace, set aside from all of his competitors like people like Bill Gates. In other words, Steve Jobs had a unique value proposition. He knew who he was in the marketplace and what value he brought to business. He was his own brand with this distinction. And people knew who he was and why he was valuable. That's why they followed him, that's why they invested him, and that's why they invited him back to run Apple. When I looked at my own self through this lens, it really gave me a lot of encouragement. I'm a world-class magician, an award-winning filmmaker, and a speaker. And this unique combination of skills give me a perspective that enables me to help other people tell their unique story. My unique value proposition is because of who I am and what I've become. Now ask yourself the same question. What perspective and what value proposition do you bring to the marketplace that is unique to you? This is the first step and the first strategy to creating your own personal brand. Strategy 2, think authentic. Steve Jobs did not flex needlessly. In fact, most of his flexes were simply about what he was building or what he was doing. We all know this guy.
Yeah, dude, I totally got this house and this pool and this car by drop shipping Bitcoin to people running automated YouTube channels while doing book KDP with AI.
Fake it till you make it? Not Steve. Steve worked until he created it. In fact, there's even this story about when he was looking for investment capital from Ross Perot. He hid the Porsches in the back of the building so Ross didn't think they had so much money that they didn't need investment capital. He was the opposite of a flex. And here's a good thing for you. Today, you could build your brand in public. You could do it in real time as people watch you. And this will actually build you a loyal following because that authenticity will transfer. One of Steve Jobs' most important strategies was to be authentic. Strategy 3, think technique. Steve Jobs employed impeccable storytelling technique. His product launches were a masterclass on story theory.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything.
Apple's own products followed story structure and story arcs. For a good amount of time, Steve was also the primary shareholder of Pixar. And there's a whole storytelling method that is based on the Pixar method. The guy oozed storytelling technique. His personal brand was really based on the hero's journey. He implicitly knew how to tell a story with proper technique. Just watch this.
Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories.
Now look, learning storytelling technique is a lifelong journey. If you wanted to play a song on the guitar, you might learn 3 chords, and you might be able to play 1 song on the guitar. But to call yourself a musician, you would have to learn many more chords and many more parts of playing music. And even the most accomplished musician is still learning more about music. The same with storytelling. It's a lifelong pursuit. That being said, I want to give you a simple story structure that you can use right now, and I'm going to give that to you at the end of this video. Strategy 4, think audience. Steve Jobs knew exactly who he was speaking to. He was all about the user experience.
The first thing they showed me, which was the graphical user interface.
Everything he did was to speak to the ideal user. And in that pursuit, he was unwavering. Wherever he was, he focused his storytelling on his audience. In YouTube Landia,
there's a place where that idea still exists as a reality.
We know that different audiences respond to different content. Look at these 2 popular YouTubers and how they tell stories differently.
I've got the clothes on my back and $100,000, and today I have to spend all of it on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah! I am Elon Musk! Maybe not that. Last night
So my dad once taught me a lesson that I will never forget. I was probably 12 or 13 at the time, and it was a Saturday morning. I was down in the basement with my brother.
It's very, very different. Adjust your own personal brand story to your audience, but stay true to your UVP. This means you need to adjust. Early in my career, I performed at nightclubs and theaters. But when I started to perform for corporate audiences and in corporate settings, I needed to adjust my pacing, my material, my music, and even the actual things I did on stage. A great first step is to identify who your audience is exactly. How old are they? What's their jobs? What do they like to do? What are their goals? What are their pain points? Who are they? The user experience. Strategy 5, think consistent. Now, this isn't just that you need to post consistently, but that you need a consistent brand image. You could spot an Apple product a mile away. It has a certain aesthetic and a certain functionality. It's distinctive. The same with a Disney product. It could be in any platform or anywhere in the world, and a Disney product is a Disney product. Now, if Nike started to sell donuts, you would be confused. It isn't consistent with their brand image. Steve Jobs' personal brand was remarkably consistent. His demeanor, his message, and even his look. Check out these images over the years. He looked the same. Tennis shoes, jeans, and a turtleneck. He was a recognizable and consistent brand. You knew he operated in the technological space. You understood his UVP because he was consistent in all areas of his brand. He didn't become Steve Jobs, the deep sea fishing expert, or Steve Jobs, the massage expert. No, he stayed true and consistent to who he was and what he was trying to do in this world. For us, we could model this, stay true to your UVP, and have a consistent brand image across all platforms and in all circumstances. This is as simple as having the same avatar on YouTube as you do on Twitter. All of these little details, making sure they hang together, will help you have a cohesive and consistent personal brand. Now, you've also got to understand that everything is either building up or tearing down your personal brand. Everything. Every tweet, every post, even every online complaint, and even what you do in public. You got to remember that cameras are always running. You've got to be consistent, and you got to stay focused on what your goals are or what the goals for your brand are. This is actually a helpful external restraint because it keeps us focused on what matters. So think different by think unique, think authentic, think technique, think audience, and think consistent. And if you do, you'll be establishing your personal brand, Steve Jobs style. And let me know what you need help with as you develop your personal brand. And as promised, I want to share with you my favorite simple story structure to get you started with storytelling technique. I call it writing in reverse. I made a video about it. I'll post it here next.